It's 5:30. I call this council committee meeting, finance committee together, and we'll turn it immediately over to the committee chair, Justin Haskell.
All right, thank you, Mayor. And first item on the agenda is a review and discuss the annual comprehensive financial report for the period ending September 30th, 2022. And Monica, you may turn it to Mike, or, okay? So, Mike, we will turn it over to you, sir.
Hey, great. How's everyone doing?
Well,
It's not 100 degrees.
Yeah, everywhere.
it wasn't lunch.
It's only 99.
We got 5 minutes of rain today, and it was fantastic.
Ah,
We were
just
celebrating.
rub it in.
I think most of it evaporated before it hit the ground, though. So, but I'll take what I can get. Okay, so let me see if I can share my screen here, and that might be the best way to do this.
We've got it up, Mike.
Oh, you've got it up?
Yes.
Okay. You wanna be in charge of scrolling through, or would you like me to?
Yeah, just tell us what page you need, and we'll be able to. So go
Okay,
through it.
sure. Well, I'm just gonna go through, assume you've all been provided the annual comprehensive financial report, the complete report, and letters. And I have prepared a short summary presentation. This presentation is gonna touch on a few of the more important numbers and statements within the report. It's just a summarized version, but we can circle back and talk about anything you like in more detail. All right, so I'll go ahead and start now. First, let's scroll to the second page. Just want to give a brief overview of the audit process. The audit can be broken into 3 general phases. The first is the planning and risk assessment phase. This occurs prior to year end, typically mid-year, mid to late year. But we're coming out before the books have been closed, talking to city staff, new departments, especially finance, trying to find out what's been going on during the year. Any new debt, new capital projects, new grants, departments, anything that's going to be relevant related to the extent of the procedures that we performed for the audit, and ultimately putting together our preliminary audit plan at that point. The next stage is the field work. So this is the bulk of the audit work that we do. This occurs after year end. So after the books have been closed, we're coming out, reviewing all assets, liabilities, revenues, and expenditures and expenses across all funds citywide. This includes your component units. And the final stage is the conclusion and reporting. This is the wrap up of any findings, the preparation of the annual comprehensive financial report, and the presentation and acceptance of that report. All right, next page. Next is something I just want to point out. The city has prepared a comprehensive annual financial report. This is not required. Actually, I'm sorry, this is annual comprehensive financial report. They changed that a couple years back. But the city has done this as an option, and the city has included some additional sections within your standard annual financial report. This includes an introductory section, but most notably the statistical section. In the statistical section includes a lot of historical comparative year-to-year data, financial data, debt data, economic data, and also city data. So it's very useful to the reader and for city council especially. But I do want to commend the city for preparing this report when they don't have to. Some cities are not capable of putting that information together for the report. In addition, this report is has been submitted to the GFOA to be evaluated under the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting program, and the city has received this award, has been evaluated and received the award for 34 consecutive years. The current report will also be submitted, and we fully anticipate that this current report will also receive the award. All right, next. Next, I just want to go over just a brief highlight of the various sections of your annual comprehensive financial report. First, you have the letter of transmittal, followed by the auditor's opinion, then the management's discussion and analysis, followed by the basic financial statements, which include your government-wide, which are reported on the full accrual level, your fund level statements, and the notes to the financial statements. Then finally, the required supplementary information and the statistical section. Next. Next is what we consider to be the most important portion of your annual comprehensive financial report. This is our contribution. This is our auditor's opinion. This can have 4 possible outcomes, the best being an unmodified audit opinion and the worst being an adverse audit opinion. We have issued a clean, unmodified audit opinion on the city's financials. So this is the highest level of assurance that we can give that these financial statements are free of any material misstatement and all footnotes are disclosed. All right, next, I just want to touch on several financial highlights. As of the end of the year, total citywide assets exceeded total liabilities by approximately $109 million. The city's governmental funds have a combined ending fund balance of just over $25 million, and that was an increase of about $2.5 million from the prior year. Your unassigned fund balance within your general fund totaled almost $14.1 million, which equated to 75% of your annual general fund expenditures. And overall, on the accrual basis, the city had an increase in net position of about $10.4 million for the year. Next is a summary of the governmental activities revenue. So this is citywide governmental revenues. This excludes your enterprise funds. Total revenues were $19.9 million. This was an increase of $670,000 from the prior year. The 3 largest being property taxes, which totaled $6.7 million, had a slight decrease of $2,300. Your sales tax totaled a little over $8 million and had an increase of just over $1 million, so a very healthy increase in sales tax. And your charges for services totaled $2 million and had an increase of $123,000. Right, next. Next is a summary of your governmental activities expenses. Total expenses were $17.1 million. This was an increase of $417,000 from the prior year. The 3 largest being public safety expenses, which totaled $8.9 million, had an increase of just under $20,000. Your general government had an increase, had total expenses of $2.9 million, and had an increase of $94,000. Agriculture and rec expenses totaled $2.7 million and had an increase of $245,000. Next is a summary of your statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance for your governmental funds. Your 2 major funds this year were your general fund and capital improvement fund. The remaining funds were consolidated as non-major in the column to the right. The numbers we're going to look at here is just your increase or decrease in fund balance for the year. Your general fund added $3.1 million to fund balance this year. Your capital improvements fund had a decrease of $1.1 million due to capital expenditures this year, outpacing your debt proceeds. And your non-major consolidated governmental funds had an increase in fund balance of $547,000. The next number I want to point out is your ending fund balance for your general fund. In total, it was $15.2 million, but within that total is an unassigned portion. So this unassigned portion can be used to meet unplanned expenditures or future projects, but as of the end of the year, it has not been assigned for any particular purpose. The GFOA recommends at least a 20% reserve when compared to your annual expenditures. This year, as of the end of the year, the general fund had a little over $14 million, which equated to about 75% of your annual general fund expenditures. So certainly a healthy ending fund balance reserve within your general fund. Next is the budget to actual for your general fund. On the left-hand side, you'll see the final budgeted numbers. The final budget did budget for a deficit in fund balance, so a reduction in fund balance of about $152,000. The actual results had an increase in fund balance this year of $3.1 million. So that increase is reflected in the positive revenue variance of $162,000. So the city received $162,000 more than your final budget. But more notably, the city spent about $2.8 million less than your final budget, resulting in a positive expenditure variance. And overall, that with your other financing sources and uses, at an overall positive budget variance of about $3.3 million for the year. So certainly a healthy fiscal year from a budgetary perspective. Next. Next is a summary of your revenues, expenses, and changes in net position for your proprietary funds. This includes your water, wastewater, stormwater drainage, airport, and sanitary landfill. These funds do differ from your governmental funds in that they should be self-supporting. So they should have rates that are set at a level that do fund operations, debt service, and any capital improvements, including depreciation. So if these funds are losing money over time or pulling from your net position, where they have decreases in net position from year to year, it's typically an indication of some operational issue or possibly a rate issue that needs to be looked at. So I do want to point out the overall change in net position for each of these funds. The water and wastewater fund had an increase in net position this year of $5.5 million, so that was an addition. Your stormwater drainage also had an increase of $208,000. Airport had a small decrease of $68,000, and your sanitary landfill had an increase of $247,000. So overall, no indications of rate issues or operational issues that we saw. The funds do appear to be self-supporting, excluding the decrease in the airport, but your significant proprietary fund, water and sewer and stormwater drainage, are in good shape. Okay, next. Next, along with our report, I have provided you with two required letters. One is our required auditor communication letter. This gives us an opportunity to discuss any issues we had with completion of the audit, provide you with our audit adjustments that we made, and discuss any new accounting pronouncements that were adopted this year. We did not have any difficulties with the completion of the audit. There was 2 audit adjustments, which was extremely minimal, related to your peers from our typical city of your size would have more than 2. We're probably looking in the 15 to 20 range. GASB 87 was adopted this year, and it did reflect in a new asset and a new liability on the city's balance sheet. GASB 87 is, if you're familiar with leases, changed the way capital leases and operating leases were reported. Basically created one category with all leases being considered similar to capital leases, where you would record the asset, depreciate it, and also have the liability for the present value of the payments. In addition, we have provided you with our communication of internal controls. We did not have any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies. We did have a few other minor recommendations. I won't go over those in detail, but if you had questions over them, I'd be happy to discuss them. But overall, the audit went well, and Monica and her team did a great job for us. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Great. Thank you, Mike. Any questions from the Finance Committee?
I'll just ask Monica. Monica, could you discuss or talk a little bit about the 2 audit adjustments that were made in this?
One of them was for $116. There was something when we closed out the books from 21 that had gotten backdated. Since it was a very small amount, I chose not to go back and dig through to find it. Time management, I figured it was better just to go ahead and do the entry that they suggested. And then the other one was when we did the refunding of the storm bond. I missed a couple pieces of that one, so.
But all that's been corrected and.
Yeah.
Good. Thank you, ma'am.
Mhm.
Appreciate you.
Any other questions?
I'm good.
With that, do we have a recommendation to send to council?
Mr. Chairman, I move we send with a positive recommendation the final audit report as it's been presented here tonight.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Motion carries with a positive recommendation to council. Mr. Brooks, thank you for your time and working with Monica and getting us through the annual audit.
Absolutely. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
All right, item number 2 on the agenda is budget adjustments for fiscal year ending September 30th, 2023. Is there any questions from the committee on the agenda item? Hearing none, do we have a recommendation for the budget adjustments for year ending September 30th, 2023?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we recommend to the council approval of the budget adjustments as presented.
A motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second, any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, same sign. Motion carries with a positive recommendation to council for budget adjustments as presented. And item number 3, consider approval of investment policy. Monica, I'll just let you quickly give a brief overview, but I know that on an annual basis, we do have to review and adopt an annual investment policy. So if you don't mind, just a little bit of background behind that.
As part of our Public Funds Investment Act, they like us to do our investment policy and bring it to you guys annually to review and make any changes each year. Well, every other year, the legislature can make changes that would impact. And so it's been several years since we did this, so we've brought it forward. Some of the changes that have happened is we just updated some of the information. We, if you'll notice on page 5, under suitable and authorized investments, we do not list all of the investments that we actually can invest in, just because some of them are things that we just absolutely will never do. So we've left some of those out, but we included detail in this one that actually shows under the Public Funds Investments Act where it authorizes us. And so there was a few of them that were updated. Things like the repurchase agreement went from like 180 days down to 90. The commercial paper had added a stated maturity not to exceed 365. So there was just a few things like that we added. Also, we added some information. I think in the old policy, we had some things that we really couldn't go beyond, like 2 years or a year. Typically, we go out a year. Most of our money is held within our investment pools because currently they're some of the better interest that we're getting. But our policy was usually we'd only go about a year, but this gives us some flexibility to get a little bit longer out, keeping in mind our liquidity that needs. And so we've increased some of those. I honestly don't see at this point us jumping out there and doing a whole lot of 5-year things, but occasionally. So I wanted to have the flexibility in the policy to be able to do that. Our current weighted average maturity is about 4 days because most of our money is in our investment pools. And so I think this policy we've added to have the weighted average maturity not to exceed 12 months. So that really shouldn't be a problem at all for that. And then we've also added just some additional information as far as who our investment officers are. Now that we have an assistant finance director, we've added that because should something happen and I can't come to work for a while, we want to have somebody that can step right in and take over and take care of things while I'm out. And that's pretty much it. On this policy, what I've printed for you is just the policy and a few of the documents as far as the list of our authorized people. We approve our brokers. We currently only have one broker that we're dealing with, which is Multi-Bank Securities. We're satisfied with what we do with them. And but I've also included on the web document, I didn't want to print it all out, but we did include the copy of the Public Funds Investment Acts, and then also Section 2257, which is the collateralization statute. So.
Did we discuss 5-year thing with the investment advisor? Or was that their recommendation, or just,
That is something that I did to have flexibility, because he's always sending me things about, yeah, the new 5-year and it's great, and I'm like, great, because I can't do it.
yeah.
So,
What, so that maximum maturities was set at 12 months before?
on some things, it was a year, and there was a couple that there was 2 years, so.
So there, so this would, so the, if you did the 20% at 12 months or less, then the other 80% could theoretically be laddered over time beyond the 12 months.
Yes.
Doesn't look like anything's outside of sovereign debt anyways, though. And it's all either government issued of some sort, so.
And I will just tell you, I mean, if you've looked at our investment reports, we have stuff in the investment pool. We have the certificates of deposit, and, you know, we've got a little bit in US Treasuries. You're not gonna see me doing a lot of wild and crazy things, mainly because I'm not comfortable doing wild and crazy things. I mean, I really take the security of the money very seriously, so you will not see me do things that I'm not comfortable with.
Any comments or recommendation?
Just as a point of clarity, Monica, on page 10, you have Rebecca listed as a representative, and her title is city secretary.
I forgot to update that, thank you. She's the assistant finance director. Sorry.
Okay.
I copied and pasted what was in the old policy, and it was the previous city secretary, so
Okay.
I'll get that corrected. We're not replacing you, Sarah.
Didn't know if we were breaking news right here or what.
Yeah, no
Who was
kidding.
fixed to be sitting next to me?
We're supposed to do that in executive session.
What?
We're supposed to be doing that in executive session.
Okay. Is there a recommendation to council?
Mr. Chair, I'll make the motion to recommend this for the investment policy for full approval to, with the change of the title for Rebecca on page 10 to full council.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? With that, all in favor say aye. And opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Monica, thank you. Mayor, that concludes the agenda for the Finance Committee.
I appreciate that. Before we leave, I just want to mention that our chief, Dan's father, was in an accident this evening, and a pretty serious one, so they're on their way to San Angelo right now. So everybody keep Dan and his family in your prayers if you would. With that, it is 5:53, and with no other items on the agenda, we will stand adjourned.